Hello, I'm Rob Price. This season, we're exploring agentic AI from the perspectives of those driving its evolution. Welcome to Futurise.
So hello, I'm Franck Pivert. Happy to be there and to talk to you, let's say, Rob. So first, if I maybe step back, very often in my career has been about exploring, let's say, how humans and systems perform under pressure. I started in the French Navy, then created a consulting firm. I even created an AI company back in the late 90s. Very good idea, but probably too early. Then I joined McKinsey and later Allianz and Wakam and InsurTech. And maybe all across all these environments and experiences, I saw the same reality. Organizations always depend on human expertise, whatever the technology you use, and even more beyond individual expertise, on the team dynamic of experts willing or not to work together. So I think it's probably something that is really, really important, teamwork of experts. And that observation led me to co-create a few years ago now, 2 years ago, with a company called Swiss 6022, with Arnaud Vincent, a deep AI expert since in the 90s, and also Nicolas Bacca, one of the top blockchain security minds and former CTO of Ledger, the custody wallet on the blockchain. And our mission is to make it simple, is to reimagine the future of work with AI. And we have a specificity. We don't see AI as just another IT tool. We see it as a new kind of teammate, which is a major shift of paradigm. And in this context, we built agentic team solutions. So what it is, it's a group of AI agents that collaborate with humans like colleagues around the same table. They debate, they can challenge and decide together in the same, I would say, messy and dynamic way real teams do. So once you see an AI showing up in Slack or in Team, not as a chatbot, but as a teammate, you can really realize it's not an IT feature. It's a new operating model. And to maybe put it clearly, we are not in the field of very deterministic automation, where you automate a task and steps. We are more exploring how agents or humans can debate and could decide to reach the best possible outcome. And from there, we pushed even further the limits. So we started to create not only AI agents, but also digital twins of people. Uh, and here it's not again tools, it's more an AI avatar of expertise that capture how you think and decide, and that can even keep contributing even when you're not at your desk. And that's what excites us, making more human intelligence and team, let's say, dynamic, scalable. So to make it simple, we're trying to go beyond automation of tasks. We're trying to scale expertise and intelligence.
So Frank, I mean, firstly, it's great to have you on the podcast. Are you in Paris today?
Yes, I am based in Paris. So our team is, let's say, spread between Belgium, Switzerland, and France.
Fantastic, and I hope it's not as wet and miserable in Paris as it is kind of here with me at the
Yeah,
moment.
unfortunately, it is the case.
Okay, cool. I mean, look, when we first kind of spoke, I was really interested in that point that you made around building, using agents to create effectively digital twins of people. It's a slightly different approach from kind of some of the other things that I hear in the market, but really interesting to explore, and lots of, I guess, tensions or dilemmas as part of that that I think we'll touch on through the podcast. So. So what does is digital twin the right word? I think is my first question. When we think of a person, I'm not, do I want to create my digital twin, or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think probably it's a, I don't know if the digital twin is the right name or avatar or whatever. But I think when usually people hear like you did digital twin, they often imagine a kind of a perfect clone of a human being. To make it clear, that's not what we are building. A digital twin is for us not 100% of the person. It's not your private life, your humor, or your full personality. What it will capture is more your business expertise, the way you think through, for instance, an insurance claim, the way you analyze a problem, how potentially you balance trade-offs in your domain. So, in fact, the reality is that most of the knowledge is rarely documented in a company. It may be more in the people heads because they have worked in years, and it's all their knowledge is sometimes is more stored in their head rather than on the paper. So that's why a digital twin is designed. It's designed, in fact, to preserve and activate this knowledge. So how does it work let's say, in real life? So in fact, it's like take again an example on Slack. You will have a chatbot or an agent coming in, uh, and in fact, it will be more kind of a junior colleague joining the conversation, learning from senior people, listening, and then let's say it will start to understand. It will start to participate to the discussion with other AI agents and also other human beings. And it will start to argue as if, let's say, it was you, yourself as an expert. And simply when he doesn't know, he will come back to you and ask for help. So this is exactly probably what you also describe in your article, especially the pillar 4, high-performing human agent team. When you start to think like this, it's not a side note. This is totally a new operating model. And digital twins are not about a simulation of machine. They are more trying to also reshape the teamwork, where agents are onboarded, trained, and integrated just like real colleagues. So we are here more to design an organization composed of hybrid teams of human and agents rather than building a software. So for me, a digital twin is uh, maybe an avatar or something like this, but in fact, it's an avatar of your own expertise. A teammate, in fact, that will learn your knowledge and keeps contributing even when you're not in the room.
I think the thing that kind of I'm trying to imagine how I would kind of react to that if it were me, or indeed how others might react. So in a sense, I've always loved tech. I've always loved emerging tech. I just want to explore. I want to play, but not everyone's like that. So how do we think about how do we motivate people to want to train, to interact, engage, to create something that can, in essence, well, let's say either support them in their job or indeed do their job whilst they're not able to. Maybe they're on holiday, maybe they're not around. But how do we motivate people to want to engage?
How to motivate people to engage in such an adventure and help to a point to create their own digital twin? I think this is probably the very good question. Usually, when I talk about digital twin, people ask me, "How do you do that technically?" So the technicality of building a digital twin is important and is not simple. But the real question is that, in fact, how do you motivate people, let's say, to build their own digital twin? And of course, to start, there is the major prerequisite. If an expert perceives AI as a threat, he will never engage to build, let's say, his replacement. So I think it's very, very important that first of all, you understand why you want to build a digital twin. And obviously, companies who are expecting to grow further and to leverage expertise are very well positioned. The one who will like only to make a huge cost cutting and reduce safety by 50%, I don't see people very well motivated, let's say, to create their own digital twin. In fact, will just make them redundant in the end. So it is a first prerequisite. So you don't need to see it as a threat, but like you said, something that could be an amplifier of your own expertise. Then how to motivate people. There are different levers. First one is obviously to relieve people from boring words, from repetitive work, and to, in fact, give them for freedom. So I think it's easier, and we have already cases where it shows, let's say, higher productivity. The agentic teams can deliver instead of all the people, and then, in fact, the experts can spend more time on the probably, let's say, the best case or the more complex cases where judgment is really required, when they can really put all the energy into it. So it's really the first motivation. Second motivation we started to see is also recognition. A digital twin will probably make more visible the know-how that often remains invisible. The way you solve problems, the shortcuts you have learned, the tacit knowledge that never makes it into a manual. And in fact, people, and here I'm talking about sometimes frontliners, the guys who nobody really cares usually because they are just the frontliners. But the frontliners, they know deeply process, they know deeply the customer. So when you start to build, let's say, a team around them, with eventually their own digital twin, for them it's a recognition. It's like the revenge of the frontliner. So it's really something that we perceived when we started to do this type of project. And beyond, let's say, recognition, obviously there is also financials. Can we really motivate people with money? And you can do it the traditional way. Traditional way will be you pay them a bonus if, for instance, the agentic team is working well, and especially if their digital twin is performing very well. So it's traditional way, just pay them a bonus at the end of the year. But you can go even further and try to push a little bit the limit and be more innovative. In fact, in our solutions, we introduced a digital wallet to the agents. For each agent, they have a digital wallet based on blockchain. Uh, and for each of their contribution, they can receive rewards, tokens, you can call it revenues. So in that case, you can also think about sharing part of these revenues with a human counterpart. It's like royalties, but for your expertise, not really, let's say, for music or something like this. So this transforms that case knowledge into a real asset that continues to work for you even when you're not at your desk. And I think in that case, we are very, very aligned with your articles, and especially Pillar 6, which talk about financial and commercial incentives. You said that financial and commercial incentives are very essential for sustainable adoption. In our case, we pushed it a little bit further, trying to even motivate people and get rewarded for that. And maybe to conclude about motivation, how do you motivate people? I think there is also a question of mindset. As an expert, you need to be open, obviously, toward the fact that an AI machine can start to copy what you're doing. You also need to be tolerant with this machine because, ironically, we are very not very tolerant with machine, whereas we can be very tolerant with human mistakes. So maybe you will be, and let's say, inclined to coach a junior human being, but not that much to coach an AI machine. And last but not least, you also need to be ready to be challenged by the AI. I think a digital twin can maybe say you one day, sorry, I don't fully agree with you. And that's not comfortable if you are an expert and you have never been challenged in your whole career. But in the end, it's exactly how collective intelligence will grow.
It's one of the things that somebody commented on one of the articles that I wrote when it was kind of agent feedback on human performance, which in a sense people look at in horror, but in a sense going back to your point, if you're treating an agent as a teammate, then you'd expect kind of that constant kind of interaction and feedback because you're looking to kind of find the optimum outputs, optimum performance. But I'm really
Exactly.
interested in this digital wallet stuff because, and look, maybe I'm putting my old payment hat on from my previous life. But this idea that I can give an agent a budget, and whether we're talking about revenue or indeed its ability to kind of cover costs in correlation of the value or the work that it's doing, I find fascinating. So tell us more about that.
Yes, in fact, it was one of our vision. It was, in fact, to beyond an identity to the agents, thanks to blockchain, you can do that very easily. Our vision was very, from the very beginning, to give him also a digital wallet. In fact, will help him to start to be autonomous. And in this digital wallet will, in fact, give three very concrete capabilities to an agent. The first one, it will help to set a proper budget depending on what is at stake. Take a very simple example. For a 100 euro claim, for instance, maybe you will allocate 100 tokens so that the agent won't waste, let's say, too much resources, time on an LLM and blah, blah, blah. For a 10,000 claim, maybe you will allocate 1,000 tokens so that it can go deeper, check more data, and ensure the decision is as solid as possible. It's a simple way, in fact, to calibrate the effort to the importance of the case, always obviously within the parameters defined by the organization. So this is the first capability. Second capability, it's something I already mentioned. It it will allow the agent to earn rewards for performance. So each time, for instance, an agent will contribute effectively, tokens can be credited back to its wallet. Let's say it is recognition of value created. And it builds, in fact, a budget that the agent can even use for future actions. So for instance, the agent can get 30 tokens out of the 100 tokens allocated in total for the case, while another agent can get just zero because its contribution was totally, let's say, null. So it's a second type of capability. And the third one, which is probably even more interesting, uh, is the wallet lets the agents buy external data or services when it makes sense. So you can buy satellite images, weather feeds, identity checks. In fact, it will be just additional information that you will like to get, let's say, depending on the case. So if I take the example for a large claim, definitely you would like maybe to check the weather conditions, the delay of the flight, whatever information makes sense. And the way we build the system, the agents can decide by themselves to buy or not this data, these external services, and probably also using MCPs, which now the model context protocol, which allow them, in fact, to go outside and get the relevant data for their own case. And it's kind of a decision making. They say, okay, if I get a reward of 100 token, I may be ready to spend one to get the maximum reward out of it. So in short, a wallet turns an agent from a tool into an autonomous economic actor. Uh, I would say blockchain gives them identity, wallets give them autonomy, and what we see is that they are the first steps towards decentralized AI.
I almost have this vision of agents competing against each other to try and see who can raise the most, or am I then bestowing things like greed on agents in terms of trying to accumulate?
Uh,
So I
you're,
mean,
you're, 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 you're just maybe on this specific case. So over the summer, we did a hackathon in Lugano, bringing blockchain and AI technology together. And our case was very simple. We built a chess board, a chess game. Each pieces of the game have their own, let's say, identity and LLMs and reasoning and behavior. Obviously, they wanted to win as a team, but as you know, sometimes you have to sacrifice pieces. And we have seen some pawns not willing to be sacrificed and starting to ask money or rewards or tokens in exchange, let's say, to the sacrifice. So it's exactly the point. It's not to argue, I don't want to be killed. Okay, but if it's for the better good or the greater good, yes, but I want money for that.
I think it's a brilliant. I mean, there are so many questions that people listening will have as we go through this conversation because I knew before we started the conversation it's one that um, people will react to. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, some people will fear it. It's kind of pushing the edge, the boundaries of what the arts of the possible are in this kind of new world in which we're all living. But the other thing I'm very conscious of is that people piece because if we kind of follow a logical conclusion around creating digital twins, we could create a digital twin of each of us, and I'm not necessarily saying that kind of my digital twin would be that useful or interesting to many others, but nonetheless, the expertise of people who've been in the market for decades. But what's the impact going to be of those just starting in the market? So my daughter started a job as a consultant last week. So in a sense, if I'm creating digital twins that do the jobs that consultants do, what am I doing for my daughter? So how are we thinking about that future of work in the context of some of the things that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think like you said, I think a digital twin can stay after your retirement. So for me, this is where the digital twins concept makes the biggest difference. So ensuring that expertise gets captured and doesn't vanish, let's say, with retirements. Today, we all know that when an expert retires, most of his knowledge often retires with him. So you will lose years of experience, years, let's say, of decisions and things like this. With a digital twin, that expertise can keep, let's say, contributing, can keep mentoring, let's say, new joiners, and even generating income to the experts after retirement to him. So now, let's say, imagine a top claims manager or a brilliant underwriter. So their twin could still support younger colleagues, answer questions, and guide decisions. So it's not really about replacing humans. It's about making sure valuable expertise continues to live on. It's kind of a modern form of knowledge management. So for the next generation, this is clearly a revolution in how we learn. Instead of sitting through, let's say, cumbersome e-learning, reading boring PowerPoints, they will work alongside digital avatars of the best experts, debating with them in real time and getting challenged and learning by doing. So in the long run, for me, digital twins will are probably already changing both sides of the work life cycle. For seniors like me, for instance, it's about leaving a legacy, keeping my expertise alive, and even monetizing it when I will be retired. For juniors, it's more about learning faster, right? Developing through real interaction and seeing careers, especially from at the very beginning, not as a blank page, but more as a dialogue with the best who came before them. So, in a nutshell, knowledge doesn't have to die with retirement. With twins, it can keep working for generation, kind of a taste of eternal life, maybe.
I think we've seen that too in some of the work that we've been doing, where in essence you've got people retiring out of the workforce that have done decades there. But of course, the generation coming into the workforce won't stay in the same place for 20, 30, 40 years. They'll move around far more often. So maybe not only is it an advantage, but it'll be a criticality to actually ensure the resilience of those organisations to continue by being able to get people up to speed. Now, I think most of your career, as you said, kind of in the introduction, has been in the insurance space, and and I think the common, although we're operating in a different set of markets, the commonality is they're complex, highly regulated markets. So, what are some of the things that you've found when you've been having conversations around digital twins or AI teammates in the insurance sector? Is that something that you've seen open embrace and interest, fear, or what in between?
Well, I think all of what you said. I think there is no one common trend in insurance. I saw people, and especially top executives, very enthusiastic about it because they see it as a new opportunity to scale, to really make a difference. I saw also top executive very afraid about it because they understand that there is a huge potential on the job, and maybe they don't want to be the one pushing the button about this transformation. And also, to be honest, I saw top executives, they don't at all understand what we are talking about. Overall, I'm not talking about our solutions, but overall, what's happening with agentic. For them, it's, I'd say, at best, an IT upgrade, but they don't take, let's say, into consideration that it's more a business transformation. But for me, I think insurance is a yeah perfect proving ground for agentic because, like you said, environment is tough, claims are often messy, customers are emotional, regulators are strict, and data is not always, let's say, state of the art. So if agentic teams can strive here, they can strive anywhere. But I think for me, there is also even a bigger story about insurance. I shouldn't maybe not say that, but insurance is not exactly famous for being the most innovative industry. I've been working in this industry for more than 20 years. Can tell you that, let's say, yeah, we still have some improvement to be done there. But today, I think pressure on these insurance companies is much higher than in past years because of higher loss ratio, higher costs. So I think the sector has no choice but to reinvent itself. So far, I think we didn't really see reinvention. We have the direct activities moving away from tied agents. But I think now, maybe for the first time with agentic solutions, we can hope for drastic cost reductions, maybe even breaking free from the infamous 20% average expense ratio that has defined the industry for decades. Everybody's stuck with it. So the end game with agentic, you can reduce maybe by half of it. I think this is the potential we see. I'm not saying it myself. I started to see productivity gains. The big companies like the BCG of this world starting to say 30%, 40%, 50% possible. Okay. But I think for me, the end game is not just about cost cutting. It means that potentially reinsurers can reinvest part of these savings to finally take on more risk or to lower price or to reach new client segments or eventually to design more comprehensive products. Because today they can't do that. They are stuck with high expense ratio and loss ratio. So they have no room to maneuver. With really reducing, let's say, expense ratio, they can potentially regain room to maneuver and start to change a little bit the market. So that's why I believe insurance is not just a proving ground for agentic. I think it's the battlefield where agentic AI can really show it's a real game changer.
And maybe as we kind of head towards the end of the conversation, if you can give me a quick view about where would you go next in terms of other markets, not necessarily in kind of the same level of detail, but just kind of an instinctive view about what are you looking at next, and then maybe we'll then wrap it up with what steps would you then take, but how
Okay.
about the next adjacent markets?
I think, in fact, insurance, like I said, is a very good proving ground. But like you said, opportunities go far beyond. For me, the real spot is everywhere you have gray zones, where decisions require judgment calls, where expertise makes the difference. So I think all the places where you need some debate and discussion and challenges. So you can apply it in legal and compliance. Just imagine an agentic team always on, not checking, let's say, when they have time, but always on. So you don't discover things too late. Obviously, also in HR and workforce development, you can also think about opportunities. And by the way, I think you should also think about AI learning and development. So maybe building an own agentic team, helping the, let's say, continue to ensure that the agents will learn and continue to develop. I think you may have healthcare. Imagine that you can have all the best surgeons around, minds around you when you are starting your job or when you're during a night shift will be a lot of things. So for me, I think taking, let's say, an helicopter view, this opens the door to a global marketplace of knowledge. Experts could publish their twins accessible on demand. Maybe you won't need to hire a McKinsey for 100, let's say, 1,000 euros a week, but maybe only rent a digital twin of the world's best actuary, lawyer, or engineer for 10 minutes. So it's a new economy where knowledge becomes liquid and accessible at scale. Obviously, everything is still yet to be invented, but I think this is coming.
I think your point around L&D for agents is a critical one. So how we need to think about that as a function in the future, and almost kind of how do we begin to link or create a stronger link between IT and HR as capabilities in the way that we think, because it doesn't really fit in either, but it fits in both, and that fusion of skills is probably another podcast in its own right. But for anyone who's then listening and thinking, okay, so I've listened to, well, actually, any of the kind of season of podcasts that we've done around agentic AI, but where do I start? I think, I mean, not only have we both kind of been involved in conversations with a number of different organisations, but we've even done some together. So what would your tips be in terms of where to start?
I think this is also a very good question. I think there is no one single answer, but maybe to help to frame the journey, because it's a journey. Maybe I will leverage the Simon Torrance maturity model, which I think helps to understand what we're talking about. In his maturity model, in fact, we three level of agentic solutions. Stage one is individual agents, agent executing a very specific task, triage, fraud checking, drafting emails. So they are the basic ones. Here, the objective is not really, let's say, ROI. It's more to test, to generate a wow effect and create excitement in the company. But this is a very critical step because everything is about change management when it comes to agentic. Second stage, I think, is a little bit more complex. Here we'll talk about multi-agent workflows. At this level, agents automate a full workflow of process. And this is probably where you can start really to capture efficiency gains. Third stage is probably what we started to develop, the agentic teams, where it's beyond automation of tasks, it's scaling intelligence. So when you have these three stages in mind, let's say having our recommendation is to think in a comprehensive manners, but in terms of a balanced AI project portfolio. So an example, for roughly 10 individual agents that will create excitement in your company, you build two, three multi-agent workflows, and you start to experiment one agentic team pilot. This way, you will learn across all dimensions, adoption, efficiency, intelligent scaling. And we think it's important to be comprehensive if you want to move away from chasing all the proof of concepts and instead trying to build something comprehensive. We are used to say in our team, you won't change anything with AI if you don't change everything. So it's about efficiency, it's about redesigning the operating model, in fact, for the future of work.
Frank, I was always looking forward to this conversation because I've really enjoyed the conversations we've had thinking about agents as people. You know what I mean, if not actually people. I love the concept of the digital wallet and how that can be used. And I am really conscious that we are exploring things at the edge of kind of what's out there in the market. So I'll be intrigued to kind of know what the response is from listeners. But it's been a delight. Thank you, Frank, for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Rob.